means a huge amount when people bring cool cars like this for me to show you. So please subscribe to the channel. Please help it grow. And let's get into this week's review. It's a blast. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of John's Garage. This week, we got a cool car. It's really cool. Look at it. It's yellow. Everybody loves a yellow car. Anyway, enough of my excitement. What is it? This week, we have a Opel... No, wait a minute. It's a Vauxhall... No. A Vauxhall? Is it a Lotus? What is this? Kind of looks like an Astra with the headlights, but it's not. Let's figure it out. This week we have been blessed. The sun gods have brought us this yellow goddess. What is it? This week we have a Vauxhall VX220 Turbo, and everything with a turbo badge is automatically better in my book. So let's have a look at it. Okay, so we need to establish, first of all, at the start of this week's video, what on earth this is. Well, it's a Vauxhall VX220 Turbo, but peel back the layers and it's actually a Lotus Series 2 Elise. So we know we're going to be in for good handling with this one and a beautiful engine sound. Now, this was also sold here in Ireland as the Opel Speedster. And I remember one of the very first ones in Ireland. Soon after these cars launched, I was a young lad and I was working in Alan's gift shop in Carlow, for anyone who knows it. And I walked out the front door there one day and lo and behold, right in front of me was this gorgeous red Opel Speedster. And my jaw hit the ground. The owner was getting out of it with what I can only assume was his partner, other half. And he caught my eye and he said, "Do you want to sit in?" And I was like, no, I'm covered in dirt and I couldn't sit in a car like that. And it always broke my heart afterwards. I couldn't get into the car because I was too dirty. I wouldn't let myself get into the car, but they were happy for me to get in. Anyway, as I watched him fall out of the car and his partner fall out the other side, I knew that one day I wanted to gracefully enter and exit one of these cars because, well, that's how you get in and out. You'll notice the roof is off here, guys. And this roof is off for a very good reason because it makes it easier to get in and out. You genuinely fall in and you genuinely fall out of these cars. There's other ways, of course, of entering and exit, but none of them are graceful, I can tell you that much. So, how did such a car come around from a brand where we wouldn't really normally expect them to produce something as quite as exciting and eye-catching as this? Well, General Motors Europe around the late 90s were looking to add little pizzazz to the range because they found out that people looked at their cars after the Calibra had disappeared and kind of were just like, If you go back the years, you used to have the Opel GT in the 70s. You had the Opel Manta then that followed that. That became a really good car, but by the mid-1980s, it was a bit naff, followed by the Ford Capri as well, suffered the same fate. Into the 90s then, you had the Opel Calibra, a very, very beautiful coupe in its own right, but the rest of the range just wasn't very much there, really. They were a standard car, nothing wrong with that, but there was nothing exciting about them. But in the early 2000s, they decided, well, in the late 90s, they decided that in the 2000s, things were going to be way different. Way different. We were going to have the Vectra C, the Astra, we were going to turbocharge them. In the UK, they were going to stick VXR stickers on them. In Ireland, they were going to be OPC, they were going to be Opel Performance cars, and they were going to be really cool, in demand, and stick it to Ford. And in every sense, they failed to stick it to Ford. They were nice cars, they were pretty good, but unfortunately some TV reviewers may have tarnished their image somewhat, but not with this car. They didn't tarnish it with this car. The problem with this car, unfortunately, was people just didn't understand that Vauxhall or Opel could make such a cool car. And in reality, well, they didn't make it. This was made in Norfolk by Lotus. Okay, so Lotus around 1999, late 99, signed a deal with GM that they would produce this car. And you might say, well, what about the Elise? What was wrong with the Elise? It was only on the market for 4 years. Well, around 2000, crash regulations changed in Europe, and Lotus were going to have to can the Elise. After Series 1, they were going to have to can it. It couldn't be sold to the public due to safety concerns. So the money from GM that was provided to Lotus allowed them to develop the Series 2 Lotus, which was going to use a Toyota engine and gearbox, and so on and so forth. It also allowed Opel and Vauxhall as well to get their hands on a mid-engined sports car, in this case pretty much a track car. So it benefited everybody. Now with Lotus, yeah, they were delighted with the money, but they didn't really care about Vauxhall and Opel too much, okay? Now, when Vauxhall and Opel and GM Europe came to the Lotus factory, they noticed one or two issues around quality control, design, procedure, in general, how things were done. So they had to enforce a little bit of a change on Lotus and say, listen, if you're going building the car for us, you got to repair the factory. You got to have work practices. You have to have torque wrenches that have torque settings on them, that people can understand that they won't torque beyond it, because we need the quality control of the cars to be great. Now, the quality control of this car, well, it's interesting. So far, since we've arrived here this morning, we've had to repair the wiper. Stone has taken a huge chip out of the bonnet, and the owner has pointed out a box with about 10 screws that have accumulated over time. So it gives you an insight into what Lotus build quality really is and really means. They also pointed out kindly that they have a big toolkit in the boot, just in case it's needed. And they also took my car keys, just in case they need to come and rescue me. So, yeah, I suppose we should have a little look around it and talk about maybe what's underneath the bonnet. Let's have a talk about that. Okay, so you're joining me underneath the clamshell mid-mounted bonnet of the Vauxhall VX220 Turbo. It says turbo in cool script here on the engine. Actually, it is really cool, I'm not going to lie. But what on earth have we got here? We have a 2-litre 4-cylinder turbocharged General Motors engine, okay? This would have been the Ecotec engine. You'd also find it in the likes of the Astra, the Vectra, and so on and so forth, and in the VXR Zafira and Meriva, if I'm not mistaken, as well. Anyway, no, not the Meriva, that was a slightly different turbocharged engine. Anyway, back to what we're talking about here. What on earth is this giving out? This is giving out 197 horsepower and is good for 0 to 60 time of 4.7 seconds. So yeah, test drive will be fun. Moving on from that, it goes up to a top speed of 151 miles per hour, which I will not be exploring today. That's for track driving only. And of course, that's where this car spends most of its life, according to the owner. They wanted a car that they could drive to the track, race around for the day, and then drive home comfortably. Now, to achieve that and to increase performance, what they have done is they have fitted wider wheels to stop the car understeering. They have also fitted adjustable gas shock suspension so that they can have a compliant ride on the way over to the track. They can then stiffen up the suspension when they're on the track and then reduce down the stiffness afterwards so they can not be shaken to pieces and not have any more screws leaving the bodywork that they have to accumulate for later repairs. Anyway, this clamshell bonnet, okay, is worth approximately 5,000 euros. So if you're wondering about the cost of a car like this, because of some of the build quality issues, costs can be expensive. These are hard to get, they're no longer available. Other things which are very difficult to get, the likes of the lights, body panels in general, very, very hard to get, very, very expensive. Now, overall, the cost of the car is about half that of a lease. But the parts are very difficult to get. Service items, not too bad. Engine is pretty standard across the range. So in those ways, it's not too bad. It's just some of the more bespoke elements which are a bit of an issue. But the engine at the time when this was originally launched back in the year 2000 was actually a 2.2-litre 4-cylinder engine. It was good for about 150 horsepower, but it came in for a lot of criticism that the car really looked great. It drove almost as good as in a lease, and in some people's opinion a little bit better. It just depends on your perspective, but the engine was always just a bit dead. The 1.8-litre VVTi from Toyota that was in the Elise Series 2, very sweet revving engine, lovely free engine, good for performance. You go back to the Series 1, it had the 1.8-litre K Series engine, a great engine. But Vauxhall just weren't hitting the notes. Now, the marketing department in Vauxhall and General Motors in Europe and Opel and so on and so forth, they estimated that they could shift about 10,000 of these annually. The figures never got near that. After 3 years, they'd only sold about 3,000 units. So, what did they do? Well, they turbocharged it, and they also released a VXR version, which was a track-focused version. There was only about 60 of those made to increase the performance and the image of the car. And for the final 2 years of the car's life, sales went up to just a smidge over 7,200 units, which is not even close to what they had projected for an annual sales figure. However, I don't believe that tells the full story. The market for a car like this is tiny anyway. Lotus were selling more than them, granted, yes, but it's still a very small market. When you have a badge that isn't associated with performance cars like this particular one was, it's going to be a hard shift for consumers anyway to buy into the image and to purchase the car. But the owner tells me they've had a really good experience with this car. It's generally speaking been pretty good, but once it gets on track, once you drive this car, they say it comes alive. And the other good thing, and this is where the hair's breadth between the Series 2 Elise and the Speedster and the VXR 220 Turbo is introduced, is that if you like your ride not to shake you to pieces and punish you every single time you drive the car, well, this is the car for you, okay? If you love to be shaken to pieces and you love to be battered and bruised as you drive along the roads, enjoying yourself quite a lot, well then the Elise is for you. That's really the difference. It's a little bit more compliant on the road, but it does make a huge difference apparently. Now, when I said this is like a Lotus Elise, it isn't exactly the same. The chassis is slightly different. So what splits this car apart from a Lotus Elise? Well, first of all, it's about 30 millimeters longer and it's about 20 millimeters wider. It's got a wider track, it has different engine, different gearbox, different setup on the suspension, and so on and so forth. It also comes with more storage, so it's ever so slightly more practical. And they're the main differences. You have the brand and styling differences as well, but other than that, it's probably a more compliant and livable car. And of course, these were sold through regular Opel dealerships and Vauxhall dealerships, so in terms of servicing, once there was a specialist tech there that was trained, there was no issue with getting the car looked after in that regard. Just parts supplies, they've gotten a little bit older, is a little bit more of a challenge. So let's jump around to the interior. I'm going to fall in there and you can see me do it and see what it's like to get in a Lotus. Oh, not a Lotus, a Vauxhall VX220 Turbo. Let's go. Okay, so the owner has told me the most graceful way to enter this car is simply to walk in and slide and fall into the car. So apparently that's the best way in and out. Now, instantly, anyone who is familiar with an Opel Corsa from 1996 or there and thereabouts will be familiar with some of the interior features of this car. First of all, the interior stalks are straight out of an Opel Corsa, but you could also claim they're straight out of a Lotus Elise as well. Some of the switchgear, absolute complete Opel. Some of the behind these, I know these look bespoke, but behind them the electrics are pretty much all straight out of an Opel, and the key is Opel Corsa Opel Astra key from the mid-90s. So there's a little bit of familiarity to it. Now, what else do you see in here? Well, I'll show you a shot of it because you're not picking it up in the camera right now, but the floor is the exposed chassis of the car. You can actually see it, feel it, be part of it. It is very bare in here, folks, I'm not going to lie. Now, one of the things the owner did here was they removed the original dials from the car. And the reason being is they couldn't see them in sunlight. Because of the angle that they're placed, and because the angle that sun enters the car, it actually blinded them. So when they were on track, they couldn't see anything on it. So they've fitted a digital display which shows up in all different types of sunlight. You have a 5-speed manual gearbox. You have some very, very solid, but actually quite supportive seats in a weird kind of way. They're quite supportive. You have a massive sill which you have to get over to enter and exit the car. Again, that's a carryover from the Lotus Elise. And that's pretty much it. You don't really have anything else. We have a start button here in the center of the dashboard. We have a lovely, lovely little sports Momo steering wheel. And that's it. Now, we have no power steering in this car, but that's the same with the Lotus Elise and the Opel Speedster as well. That wasn't fitted from new. General Motors, though, being a somewhat respectable car company at the time, were very concerned that they'd get sued by a customer for going backwards through a hedge or dying in some fireball accident. So they insisted that in the Lotus factory that their versions of the car be fitted with ABS brakes. And that was it, really. There's no power steering. Oh, the airbag. They wanted an airbag. So you get one airbag for the driver, not for the passenger. You got ABS brakes, and that was pretty much it. In terms of conveniences, well, there's a little storage unit here which the owner uses for things that fall off. There's another one for the passenger on the other side. You probably fit a phone in there. There's these absolutely beautiful aluminium window winders. There's the beautiful center aluminium plastic finish. There is the aluminium on the floor. And that's pretty much it. There's a lot of exposed chassis. Now, one thing which I can immediately point out will become a little bit irritating is if you're a little bit taller than me, there's this piece that juts out from the roll bar there that digs into your head. And I wouldn't bang my head off it, we'll put it like that. There is also a drinks holder back here for, I don't know, convenience maybe, but I don't see what difference it's going to make. And that's kind of it. That's pretty much the interior of the Opel Speedster. Now, I will say one thing. I'm calling it the Opel Speedster, sorry, because that's what I'm used to calling it. This particular one's the Vauxhall VX220 Turbo. I will say one other thing. The interior in this is absolutely beautiful. You are very much sitting in the center of the car. The fit and finish, despite all my joking and messing, is actually quite good. Everything here works. Everything here is present. You have simple rotary dials. You have a radio there, which is more for the passenger. You have all your different switches over here, your buttons. Nice, easy, well-placed gearbox, I would say. But you also have elbow room. Now, I will say, if there was a passenger in here, you're going to get pretty cozy. Changing gear, you're going to be touching their leg. So make sure you know them pretty well, is what I would say to you. I wouldn't take a stranger in the car. We'll put it that way. The roof, a nice canvas unit that is fitted to Lotus Elise as well. Similar kind of setup. But other than that, it's a focused car. You're not driving this car for comfort. We'll put it that way. You're driving this car because you really want to go out and you really want to drive hard. Now, I told the owner when they were coming down here today, I said, today's going to be a day of contrasts. So this morning I was filming an old Volvo 240 GL, and right now I'm in a track car, and it's just the way life runs sometimes. Sometimes we have different cars, and the contrast can be quite interesting at times. But anyway, I think we should get this on the road and take it for a spin and see how we get on. So folks, you are very welcome to the test drive of the Vauxhall VX220 Turbo. Now, the owner was very, very clear. If I gun it in first or second gear, I will do circles. I also need to give it a few revs in second gear. Whoa, right, that's nice. It is actually, as the review said at the time, it is a little bit more compliant when you're driving it. I'm not going to lie, it's not as hard-edged as I thought it would be. My God, though, this thing is eager. Wow. So to describe driving this, folks, you can see I have the roof off. It is the last Sunday in November, for those of you trying to get an idea when this was filmed. It is cold. It has been cold. It has been wet. It has not been nice weather, but God is good, and God is good today. We have lovely sunny weather for this drive. Road's a little bit greasy, so there's absolutely no chance I'm going to push this on just in case something goes wrong. But it is absolutely a dream to drive. You really feel everything up through the steering, up through your seat. It's nice being in the center of the car. You can really select that line. You know how far the arches are. You know where the overhangs are. It's actually incredibly nice to drive. Now, I know you think I'm probably insane sitting here in my shirt, but there is a good heater system in the car, so not too bad. The other thing I will say is if I put my jacket on, it interferes with the microphone. You don't hear what I'm saying. But anyway, apart from all those type of things, is this a good car? I haven't even tried to drive it hard, and I can tell you it's bloody great. It's so alive. Like every single little twitch of the steering wheel, instantly you get a response. Foot in the accelerator, even just feather light touch, you're getting a response. The brakes, lovely and sharp. Really, really good brakes. That ABS system, I have to say, I really think it's certainly doing the car a bit of benefit. Gives you confidence going into a turn that you can really press it hard, that you're not worried about losing the back end of the car, locking up the wheels and understeering straight through the turn, as has nearly happened to me in my own Toyota MR2 for the 5 days that it worked. Anyway, that car will be back again. We'll see that again. As I say, for such a track-focused car, it is really compliant. Now, the owner tells me if they fit the original wheels and alloys onto this car, it's even more so. It's actually a really nice car to spend a bit of time in. Now, this is really nice. I'm going to slow down. There's a little tunnel here, and we'll have a little bit of fun just for a second. There we go. Wow. Folks, when that turbo kicks in, it's like, how do I describe that? It's like I've 10 people pushing me in my lower back. It's unreal. It's really nice, I'm not gonna lie. I think the last car I drove, God, I think the last car I drove, which had brilliant handling and had that supercharger that really stuck in my mind, was the Mini Cooper, John Cooper Works, the R version. That was our GP version. That was absolutely a thrill, a hoot. This is something else entirely. This is, I hope the sound is okay. This just taps in. I don't know, it gets all the senses going. It's hard to explain. It gets all the senses going. It is great crack, folks. It is such a nice car to drive, I'm really not going to lie. Wow, and I'll be honest, the handling, the power, it's all accessible. I'm well within legal limits here. I'm not doing the dog on it. I'm not trying to provoke the car. It's just a hoot. It's so light, it's so nimble. And now I can see why it's so plain inside. There's nothing here to distract you. There's nothing here to cause a fuss. The owner has dealt with the one thing that was upsetting them, which was the original dials couldn't be seen. Now it's nice and clear. You have a huge big rev counter in front of you, nice clear speedometer. Wow, wow, when they told me to take it for a long spin, normally I don't take it for too long, but I could see myself staying in this car. It doesn't need a roof, you don't need a jacket. Maybe I'm just hardcore like that. I believe in the winter all roofs should be down. It's just put your tops down in the winter, but that's just me. Wow, you really feel everything. As I say, you just feel like you're an inch above the ground. Wow, it's just bobbing along, but there's no edge to it. I can't get over how smooth the suspension is. There's just no edge to it. It's actually really compliant. Now, I know that's not the case in the Elise. I know if you're going to drive the Elise every single day of the year, as I say, it's the end of November right now, you have to be hardcore. This is different. It's just dialed back slightly, but it really makes for a different experience. Folks, I got tingly fingers driving this thing. This is great. And I'm not just saying it. Oh, wow. Now, the thing is, folks, for anybody who would be interested in buying one of these, they're not unaffordable. They're actually pretty affordable as sports cars go, as track-focused sports cars go. They are attainable. They're far more attainable than a similar Lotus Elise, a Series 2. Way more attainable than them. Possibly, as I said, the only issue being is parts supply into the future will make them expensive to run, but you're going to have something that's really different. And I mean it, I mean really different, and so much fun. Like, I'm bobbing along and I'm bouncing along, but I'm not uncomfortable, and my back is, I have a very bad back, and I'm quite sensitive to things like that. I'm also quite a big guy, but this is cool. This is like, makes you feel like a child kind of cool. Oh, folks, listen, I wish you could be here with me. I'm so happy the owner of this car brought this to me. I'm going to drive beyond my normal little finishing spot. I'm so happy they brought this car to me. This is actually made a very strange weekend for me personally. I'll get into it another time. Very strange weekend. This has really made it worthwhile. Man, if I could spend every Sunday driving something like this, I would be the happiest man going. I would be a happy chappy, we'll put it that way. Oh my God, a pulse is racing. I don't know what else to say, folks. I'm gonna rank this up there as the most fun car I've ever driven. It's really cool. Anyway, with that, listen, thank you so much to the owner. Thank you to the viewer for watching this. I hope you're having a great time. I hope you're enjoying the channel. I hope you're buzzing as much as I am. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe. The one thing I said when I started this channel was there is cool cars in Ireland and we need to see them, and this is a cool car. It is in Ireland, it is registered in Ireland, and I'm so happy the owner brought it to me. Adios, folks. Bye bye.